You're listening to episode 13 of A Whole New You podcast. On today's show, we're discussing the health benefits of wine. We'll talk about red wine versus white and the reasons why organic and dry farmed, clean crafted wines are superior. Welcome to A Whole New You podcast. I'm your co-host, Kim Maravich. I'm a registered nurse and author of the book 360 Health. I'm joined by my dear friend, Laurie Bittel, a health and wellness coach certified through the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. Our show exists to inspire and empower women to take charge of their health with weekly tips and conversation about self-care, mindset, nutrition, fitness, and clean living. Please keep in mind that the material provided in this podcast is intended as general information only and should not be used as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. We're thrilled to have you here. Let's get to the show.
Hello, everyone. Today, we are going to be talking about wine, and our intention for this podcast was that we were going to drink a little wine while we were doing it. Kim was planning on bringing over a delicious rosé, and it's only 10 o'clock in the morning, so that would have been kind of fun and funny. But ironically, after all this planning and talking and being so excited about doing this, I woke up this morning at probably like 4 o'clock in a panic. Yesterday was my birthday and I was celebrating my birthday. And then, 4 o'clock this morning, it hits me like we are leaving for vacation tonight. We're getting up in the middle of the night and driving for 2 days to Florida. So you guys know, as women, that day before you try to go on a vacation and leave your house for 7 days, there's like a gazillion things to do. So this morning I woke up with the realization of, who do I think I am drinking at 10 in the morning on this day that I have to do all this stuff? So then I go downstairs, I get my coffee, I pick up my phone, and I have all these messages from Kim throughout the night. And she is the first one. It's like 1:30, 2 o'clock or something. And it said, I think we're going to have to maybe push the podcast back a little bit in the morning, if that's okay, because, one of my boys is sick and, just had to rearrange her whole day. And then again, at 3:30 or something, I get another text. Oh my goodness, we have another incident, other kid. And, the whole family had been struggling with this, I guess, for, several days now. And they kind of went to bed last night thinking they were past it and everyone was feeling better. So you all also know about that middle of the night wake up that's so awful and everyone's sick and you have to clean it all up. And I just feel for Kim so much. So that was this morning when I woke up and saw those texts. And then I just started laughing hysterically. Who do we think we are? We're going to be drinking wine at 10 o'clock in the morning. And now instead, we're not even together. We are recording separately at our own homes because she didn't want to infect me. So thank you so much for that, Kim.
You're welcome.
Does not make a very fun 2-day drive either. So,
oh, Laurie, I'm so sorry. I when we were talking before we started recording, and I just said, this is hot mess city over here right now. We are a mess. And yes, Laurie, happy birthday, my dear friend. I haven't seen you.
Well, your gift to me is not giving me the virus. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I feel so bad for you guys. Oh, gosh. This just needs to get out of that house.
Yeah, I mean, I do not want to go into graphic detail, but when toddlers and little kids get sick, they have no control over their bodies. And so it's just everywhere. And our oldest got sick in our bed last night. So that was fun, cleaning all that up at 3:30 and not going to sleep until after 4:30. And then I think I slept for 4 hours. So I just want to say ahead of time, please forgive me if I am not making a whole lot of sense today, but I'm trying. I'm here. I'm holed up in our spare room with the door locked, and there's literally vomiting outside my door happening right now.
Oh, I'm so glad you're feeling okay, though. Jeez.
Yeah, I'm better a little bit, I think. I haven't thrown up any for 2 days, so that's good.
And again, kind of funny that we thought we were going to be drinking wine. Even yesterday, we were talking about it. You're like, I'm feeling better. Everyone's doing better. I'm bringing the rosé. Meanwhile,
Oh,
like you probably haven't been able to eat for a couple of days. I don't think wine would have been the best thing to introduce to your stomach this morning.
I'm such a health guru, aren't I?
I
I mean,
know.
I give great advice, and yeah, I'm gonna drink wine on an empty stomach when I've had like bananas for 2 days.
This was our big moment. We were going to have so much fun. Yeah, it's funny.
Oh God,
Funny,
Lori.
funny. Mom life, right? That's how
Oh
it
yeah,
works.
exactly. Uh-huh. You got it.
Oh, goodness. Well, I just also wanted to talk for 1 minute about turning 43 because, again, that was my day yesterday. And I have to say, I feel pretty fabulous. But ironically, it's not like, the whole Housewives of Cranberry Township kind of fabulous. I've got these huge, deep wrinkles in my forehead, and I stopped coloring my hair, and I have grays all over the place. So when I say fabulous, it's like not what people would picture as fabulous, but I feel fabulous, like on the inside. I just really have reflected this birthday on how great I feel and how, we say this, I know we've said it in other episodes. I think we said it when we were talking about Kim's birthday and just 40s and, how you start to just find this contentment with yourself. And it's really cool. It really is just cool.
Well, Lori, you do look fabulous, and we all have wrinkles. When you hit your 40s, you tend to see those lines, but you're beautiful
Oh, well, thank
inside
you.
and out,
Well, thank you,
inside and
Kim.
out.
And, I had this sweet young stylist doing my hair recently. And, we were talking about my grays. And I thought for sure she was going to say, we need to color this, because for one thing, it's like making, getting more work for them, to be paid on. And of
Mhm.
course, they're going to tell you need to color your grays because then you're in there every however many weeks, especially at this point. It's a lot of upkeep for me. So I thought for sure she was going to say, we need to color these. But instead, she said, you rock these, girl. They're your wisdom highlights. And I said, I am
Oh,
going to use that.
I like that
My
wisdom
wisdom
highlight.
highlights.
Mm, I like that.
So I'm going to rock it for now. We'll see.
You should. I love them. They look great.
Oh,
And there's not that many of them, Lori. It's not like it's
oh,
really
yeah.
noticeable.
It's like the rear view mirror thing, like if with the sunroof the sun hits right off at the top of my head and right in the rear view mirror. I see it, and they're like a different texture, they're crazy. They're like these
Mhm.
wiry little things sticking up out of the top of my head, but whatever. They don't
I
bother
know.
me. I'm good.
I You know what? I get them in my eyebrows. Do you ever get
Oh
grays in your
yeah, they're
eyebrow?
unruly.
Mhm.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are nice. I can pluck those out though.
Lovely, lovely. Well, I did used to pluck the crazy ones shooting out of my head too, but I kind of gave up on that. So, because then I realized
Mm.
they grow back, but then they're short and then they really stick up. So, don't pluck the heads on your hair or the hair on your head. Not a good thing. But eyebrows, absolutely. Those things are
Oh, yeah.
gone. We don't leave them in there. So,
Oh. Oh
well,
gosh.
see, we're having fun even without drinking wine.
We are.
But, wine also has, a lot of other benefits other than just having fun. Like there's definitely some health benefits to go with wine. We talked about it in a previous episode as part of the Mediterranean diet. It's actually, recommended on certain diets. So, it can be heart healthy and Kim's going to get into a whole slew of benefits. She's got so much great stuff for us today from her book and some other research that she did. But, ironically, I got, as we were talking about doing this podcast and chose this topic, I got a newsletter from IIN. And there's some cool facts in there too about wine. And like, obviously, they're right on the same page as us at this point. But, one of the things that they said are that, not all wines are created equal, and natural wines skip the additives. They're organically farmed and they involve minimal processing, which, I guess we probably don't even think about that with wines that much. We're concerned about a lot of other foods, and things being processed. And I guess I never really thought of wine that way. I just thought it comes from grapes and it's so natural. But again, not all wines are created equal. So Kim's going to go into some of the health benefits with us now. And This is going to be really, really interesting.
Yes, I hope I can keep it interesting for you.
It's
I feel
especially
like
going to be interesting if someone's throwing up outside the door.
oh my gosh, I have the door locked and I'm just praying like nobody bangs on. My husband's home, so just so you know, their kids are not by themselves
No,
vomiting.
no. He's sick too, so everyone's home.
Yeah, we're all here. Yes, but so the health benefits of wine. I am going to take some information from my book, um, and then also from other resources. One of which is Dr. Axe. I really like his website, and he has a lot of great information on various health topics. So what I'm going to start with is the pros of wine, and most of these pertain to red wine in general. But red wine has polyphenols, catechins, resveratrol. We've all heard of resveratrol. Some people even take supplements of that. And those are potent antioxidants. And the polyphenols are primarily found in the skins of grapes. So that's why red is more beneficial in comparison to white wine, because in white, the skins have typically been removed. Um, and so, why do we want antioxidants? Because they help to protect against free radical damage. We hear about oxidative damage, like with those processed oils that we might have in some packaged foods that we want to try to avoid. So, red wine does provide antioxidants for us. And also, some alcohol, and this is alcohol in general, can be beneficial in warding off the stomach bacteria H. pylori, which can, people often think of that as being implicated with stomach ulcers, and also even in stomach cancer. So it does have some benefits in that way. And then from Dr. Axe's website, he also is a proponent of red wine consumption. He also mentions, in addition to resveratrol, is quercetin, which is another antioxidant. Red wine can slow atherosclerosis, which is like that plaque in the arteries, the hardening of the arteries. It can improve cholesterol, so it increases the quote unquote good cholesterol, the HDL, and lowers the LDL. It can fight that free radical damage we talked about. Also, red wine doesn't raise blood sugar as readily as other kinds of alcohol or even white wine. So that's a better option for someone like with diabetes or who might be insulin resistant. It can help reduce weight gain. There is a compound in grapes that can block an immature fat cell's ability to develop and grow. So people who are, looking to lose weight or don't want to gain weight, this is a better option for them as well. There is some research that shows that red wine can help prevent Alzheimer's disease. And again, that's from the resveratrol that may help slow dementia. Resveratrol is also a phytoestrogen. And I think that's something that we kind of confuse. We hear phytoestrogens like in things like soy and red wine, and people are a little bit afraid of that. But that just to for comparison's sake, it's not a xenoestrogen. Xenoestrogens come from like man-made materials like BPA and plastic and some like skincare products that we need to be careful of for those estrogen mimicking qualities. But resveratrol in itself interacts with estrogen receptors in a positive way. So it promotes a positive estrogen balance. Now we are going to get to like why this could be, it could be bad in an estrogen way, but, and I'm talking about wine in general, but as far as red wine goes, because of the resveratrol, it has some positive health benefits. Now, what are the cons of drinking wine in general? Well, alcohol is a known carcinogen. In the 2016 report on carcinogens, this was from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, that was categorized as a known carcinogen. So we know that that alcohol and wine do play a role in the development of cancer, some kinds of cancer. And again, this is dose dependent, which we'll get to in a minute. But the more alcohol a person drinks over time, they're higher risk for cancer. It develops. So those are especially cancers of the esophagus, like esophageal cancer, head and neck, which you can understand, just like the sensation of like the burning that sometimes you feel with the alcohol, but it can erode that. can also maybe cause reflux in some people, which can lead to esophageal cancer. It's also implicated sometimes in respect to lung, liver, breast, and colorectal cancer. The ethanol from the alcohol is broken down and becomes acetaldehyde, which damages our DNA. So that's where kind of like the poison aspect of it comes from. Also, alcohol impairs our ability to absorb vitamins, especially A, C, D, E, folate, B12. So, because it can damage the stomach lining, which is where we absorb many of those vitamins. And also, alcohol in general can increase our estrogen levels. So we talked about the resveratrol that can be helpful and beneficial, and that's why some people supplement with like extra resveratrol. But alcohol in general can increase our estrogen levels. So that can be linked to hormonal cancers like breast, uterine, prostate for men. Dr. Axe on his website says that he also agrees that alcohol is a neurotoxin, that it can actually cause damage to our brain when consumed in excess. Also, alcohol or wine has sulfites. White wine has actually more sulfites. Sulfites in wine act as purifiers and disinfectants in the wine to keep it, from developing bad bacteria, but they can do things to us like cause flushing. They can cause skin issues. I know that on a personal note with me, I have rosacea, and after I drink certain kinds of wine, my face gets really red and I can have like an outbreak of some of those red bumps on my skin. But sulfites can also cause abdominal issues, asthma, allergic reactions. We do know that chronic heavy drinking can damage organs. So beyond cancer, it can lead to things like liver cirrhosis, fatty liver. So a lot of yucky things that can happen in our bodies from consuming too much. Also, one of the things with wine in general is that winemakers aren't required to list ingredients. And so some have synthetic agents like aroma enhancers, stabilizers, and clarifying agents. We're going to talk about that in a minute when we start talking about organic wine. But so the recommendation, this whole episode is about the benefits of wine, which we are definitely going to get to. More so, but the recommendation, so to get the most bang for your buck, if you would like to drink wine but you don't want to have any harmful side effects, Dr. Axe on his website recommends no more than 5 glasses a week and no more than 2 a day. That's, in my opinion, pretty liberal, and that's sad to say, and for a lot of people. And I think, from a cardiac standpoint, I was a cardiac nurse and worked in the hospital, and the doctors, they would always say that people came in, if they were drinkers, like they would always say their pipes are clear, because it does have like a blood thinning effect. And like we mentioned, some of those things like lowering cholesterol levels. But so from a cardiac standpoint, they're much more liberal, but from a cancer standpoint, which is like a much bigger deal, in my opinion, 1 to 3 glasses a week is really optimal, or no more than 1 a day, especially for women. So we need to be a little bit more conservative. So I think if you're drinking wine every single day, it's probably time to cut back, to just 3 days a week if you can, or just on the weekend. And certainly if you're only drinking like on a Saturday or something, if you have 2 glasses of wine, I think you have nothing to worry about. But if it's like a nightly habit for you and you're drinking it every night, I would scale back a little bit and definitely make sure you're only having 1 glass of wine. And sometimes it's easier to just like not drink it for that night, because I know like sometimes when we have 1 glass of wine, it's just so super easy to pour a second glass. And so, because you kind of get loose and you think, oh, this tastes so good. And then you're not even thinking about like, the effects down the road. So again, just be savvy with the way you're consuming your wine. I did mention red wine is favorable just because over white, because there are more antioxidants, which combat some of the damage from the ethanol that we mentioned. So that kind of like that toxic part of the wine. And you also want to choose dark red wines that are organic if possible. They have the highest antioxidants. We're going to talk more about organic in a minute. Some interesting facts. there was a study in which researchers found an inverse correlation with overall mortality in people consuming wine, but not in those consuming beer or liquor. So the type of alcohol matters. So if you are going to have some alcohol, definitely red wine is probably the way to go, because there are so many health benefits. And Pinot Noir has the highest antioxidants, but I also know that Cabernets and Merlots, those are also helpful, and have just probably almost as many antioxidants in them. So we also wanted to talk about organic wine. We're going to talk before doing research for this episode and trying out some organic wines myself, I didn't really understand like why. I mean, I get the whole pesticide thing. I mean, we talk about wanting organic produce, and I just never really translated that to wine consumption, I guess, because I don't think it's maybe that well known or readily available. So, but after doing research, I'm really, really sold on drinking organic wine when possible. So this is from Dr. Axe, but he says that some conventional wines contain up to 70 added ingredients, which is incredibly scary. Some of those are things like unnatural yeasts, preservatives, food dyes, residual pesticides, which you can imagine from the grapes, added sulfites. So again, adding that to preserve the wine, and sometimes added sugar. 52% of all wines available in the US are made from just 3 major wine conglomerates. So because they're doing this mass production of so much wine, in order to keep up with that and preserve the wine, they need to have additives and chemicals to produce that large amount. So there's really no way to get around it, and that's why you're going to see like organic and sustainable harvesting from organic wines. They're such a smaller scale because they can control it much better. So the USDA organic program means that when wine is labeled organic, the entire production cycle from grape in the field to wine in the bottle has been done in a way that promotes ecological balance. It's also conserving the biodiversity, and it doesn't use any adulterated ingredients. So having that seal, that stamp of approval from the USDA organic stamp is so helpful for us as consumers, knowing that we don't have all this extra added yucky stuff going into it. So I am going to get into some of the problems with non-organic wine and comparing that in just a second. But I think, Laurie, you wanted to add something in here.
Well, first of all, I want to add that I am so very impressed with you. I don't think after the small amount of sleep that you had and everything that you went through last night, if that were me, I really don't think I'd even be able to put a sentence together. So I got to give you a round of applause.
Oh, thank you.
I'm so impressed.
Well, thank God for show notes, and thank God for preparation, because I could not do this off the cuff right now. Wow. So I'm reading a lot of this, guys.
Wow. You're doing great, Kim. Seriously. I think I'd be just a jumbled mess. So again, super impressed. Actually, you covered a lot of the points that I was going to bring up. The only other like huge positive, and you might be getting to that a little later here, but the reducing feelings of a hangover, right, without those sulfites is a really big deal. And you had told me like firsthand when you started drinking some organic wines that you really felt the impact of that. Like you didn't have as much of a hangover. And I think that's a lot of motivation too, right? To just, especially, talking about being in our 40s, somehow it gets harder and harder to drink because like the next day is just so not worth it because you just feel awful. So, if drinking a more organic wine, even for people who maybe aren't concerned with the pesticides, though we probably all should be, and all the additives and everything, I think that's almost motivation enough. But I think that, you had mentioned a lot of the winemakers, they're not required to list all the ingredients or the techniques that they use to produce the wine, but I do think they have to disclose if they're sulfites, right? Did you see that in your research?
I You know what? That's a good question. I am not 100% sure on
I
that.
think that
They
might be
they
the
may have
only thing
to.
they disclose.
Okay.
Other than that, that was just something else I saw in IAN newsletter.
Mm.
But still, most of them are going to contain that. It's going to probably say on the bottle that it contains it, and it's something to probably watch out for. And it's going to make you feel so much better the next day. And you said,
Yeah.
a lot of people's bodies don't react well to that. Especially those with asthma. That's a big thing. So
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I think that if you have anything like flushing or abdominal pain, or I think a lot of that does have to do with sulfites. But yeah, going back to what you said, I mean, I don't want to sound like a lush or anything, but I mean, when I think about the way I drank in college, now I wasn't drinking wine in college, let's be honest,
right, right.
but I could handle drinks, and I mean, there were some times that I didn't feel great the next day, but I mean, now as a 40 something year old, especially when I'm not having like organic wine, like you said,
Mhm.
I can't really have more than one and I feel it the next day.
I know.
I just
It's really pathetic. First of all, I'm like a two-sip queer these days. Anyway, it's really sad. And then the next day, I feel so awful. It's like not even, it was not worth it. But maybe this
yeah,
will help. You can
fine.
get the health
Mhm.
benefits, drink the high quality wine, not feel hungover. It's a great
Yeah.
option, for a party where everyone's socially drinking. Like this is good. This is good stuff.
Yeah, I absolutely think so. Yeah, and I do feel like, when I have sampled some organic wine lately, I did more than sample. I drank some organic wine. Like, I mean, I wasn't drunk or anything, but
Yeah,
but that's part of it is like I didn't feel anything the next day, and I also didn't feel really tipsy. I felt like pretty good,
yeah,
but I didn't feel drunk in any way. So that's definitely a benefit. Yeah. So when we talk about the problem, is it okay if I jump
oh
into the
yeah,
problems with?
with the
Okay.
non-organic. Hmm.
Yeah, so some problems with non-organic wine. Let's just start with that. So this is like the typical wine you're going to be consuming, if you're just, buying it off the store at the liquor store. So non-organic grapes probably contain pesticides, insecticides, herbicides, they're sprayed to make sure that they are surviving. They are higher in sulfites too, which again, that preserves and prolongs the shelf life. And all wines actually have sulfites because grapes naturally produce them. But like Laurie said, I think, a lot of them probably add in sulfites. So if they're not organic, they may have added sulfites. White wine has higher sulfites because red wine has tannins in it that also helps to preserve it. So they don't need to add as many. But white wine, if you're looking, which is kind of surprising, for some reason I thought that red would have more, but no, it's white.
Hmm.
And sulfites, like we said, can cause an allergic reaction. They also might have added yeast to it, which help in the fermentation process. But those added yeasts are likely genetically modified or GMO. They may have added sugars. Non-organic wine is actually higher in alcohol. Conventional wine has 14 to 17% alcohol, whereas natural wines have 9 to 11%. So again, that leads to less hangovers and less feelings of sickness the next day, I guess. And also, just not feeling as drunk, when you're drinking it. So having like a nice relaxation feeling without getting overly intoxicated. Um, Also, non-organic wines are not biodynamically produced, so that's just the way that they're sprayed and fertilized. They are often machine harvested, and that means that the soil is being depleted and the nutritional content of the grapes is going to decrease too. There's lots of irrigation that is needed for this, and that wastes resources and water. And the grapes could be harvested when the vines are too young, and that can result in grapes that are bruised or broken. It can decrease the flavor, and they haven't been on the vine long enough to have that like added flavor. Also, non-organic wines usually contain additives and food dyes, mouthfeel agents. So some of those things are sugar, sulfites, grape juice concentrate, which is interesting. These are just some things I saw an addition, an oak essence. So like I always think about Chardonnay. They always say it has like an oaky flavor, but sometimes they can add like an essence, like just a flavoring to it that really didn't come from the barrel. They might have pesticides, like we mentioned, defoaming agents, so it doesn't look like, it doesn't bubble and froth when you're pouring it out. They might have milk byproducts, soy flour, and even oak chips. And again, so that I think that's all for the flavoring. So just things that you don't really need in the wine. These wines might also have mycotoxins and mold, which can lead to allergies and respiratory issues. So interestingly, in Europe, they check for mycotoxins and mold, and organic checks for it too, but conventional wines aren't checked for that sort of thing. Another thing I found was that they might have animal byproducts, and I literally don't know what this is for, but they may include, get this, fish bladders, egg whites, yeah, mammal proteins and plastics, bentonite clay. I'm not sure, that's not an animal byproduct, but so anyway, what it said that was that those are used to fine and filter the wine. I mean, were they filtering it through a fish bladder?
Gross.
What the heck? I really don't know what that means, but that's
Ugh.
disgusting. Yeah. It says it might be to help improve the texture of the wine, the clarity, and the mouthfeel. So, what that's, when doing research, it said you might want to look for a vegan wine too. So that would mean that they're not using any of those things. And also, these wines could be made using a chemical, I think it's called Velcorin, which is a bacterial control agent, but it's very toxic. One other thing that I found, which is interesting to me because I am gluten-free, is that some may contain gluten, which wine in general should be gluten-free, but it could be in things like like in wine coolers, for example. That's not the same thing as wine. So because they might have like malt flavoring, that there's gluten in that. But I don't know where I wrote this down. Maybe I forgot to write it down, but it was like something of like in the preservatives of the wine that there could be gluten, and also in the storage containers. If it's like a not organic facility, they have some kind of wheat, I don't know, clay or corking kind of thing that covers the barrel. So but it's a very, very small percentage of gluten. So I know when I've been glutened, I get severe abdominal pain. I haven't ever had that with wine, like even non-organic. So I think unless you really have celiac, like you probably are okay. But I just thought that was interesting that sometimes they use like a wheat kind of corking when they're hosting it in the barrel, that people that have celiac might need to look out for. So moving on to the benefits of organic wine, it's just basically the opposite of all those things. There aren't any synthetic ingredients. They are not GMO. You're not going to see added sulfites. It uses the native yeast of the grapes so that it ferments in its own yeast, and there's nothing added that's genetically modified. It has to pass a certification every year. And it's also sustainably farmed, which means that there might be lower yields. Like we said, it's smaller. These are smaller farms. They're not putting out as much wine. But there's a longer growing and aging process for the grapes, which means that they're of higher quality and the soil isn't as depleted of nutrients. So the farming is better for our environment in general. So one kind of trendy thing that I've been hearing about on other podcasts lately, and that I've tried myself, is a clean crafted wine. And also you may have heard of a dry farmed wine. So I'm just going to talk for a minute about the differences between organic and natural or clean crafted dry farmed wine. So organic, like we said, they have organic grapes. It's biodynamically grown, which in a way that respects the land and crop rotation. It's sustainably produced with no added sulfites. Dry wine and clean crafted wine, on the other hand, is done without irrigation. So this is kind of interesting. So they're not watered at all, which is kind of interesting. You would think, as a gardener, you might have to do that. but it relies on only natural rainfall to water the grapes, and they can survive through that. So what that means is the roots of the vines can dig deeper into the soil in search of water, and they're finding more microorganisms and more nutrients deeper down in the earth, which means that it's a healthier and richer wine. So really interesting. The grapes and the vines are older. The wine, like we said, isn't irrigated. It's all natural, additive free, and dry, and organic. This is also organic. So this is like a subset even of organic. So it's a dry farmed organic. Um, it's below a certain level of alcohol, again, so you're not going to have that hangover feel. And it's guaranteed to be pure because it's always lab tested. So if you follow me on social media, I think I put on Facebook also, but also on Instagram, I came across from a friend of mine a company called Scout and Cellar, and they have clean crafted wines. And so I purchased 4 bottles because, and I was going to just purchase one. And like here's the cool thing. This is I know there's a company called Dry Farm Wines, but I think you have to be like a member to get the wines. But with Scout and Cellar, you don't have to be a member. You can order just like 1 bottle, and you can have it shipped to you. And I was going to do that with just 1 bottle, but like the shipping was like $15 or something. So I was like, well, I might as well buy more and get free shipping. So I bought 4 bottles, which took me, to the free, so I could get for shipping for free. And I can't remember what that number is offhand. If it was like $90. So again, guys, you're going to be spending a little bit more on organic wine, but it's very well worth it, especially if you like to drink wine. But Scout and Cellar, so I'll tell you a little bit about the company. They call themselves a clean crafted wine. They don't have any synthetic pesticides. They don't have any added sugars, no added chemicals. They do all of the farming that I mentioned above that's sustainable and organic. Most of them are harvested from established old vines and by hand, so not, by machine. They're low in sulfites. They are tended by actual people. So it's not like a mass industrial agricultural production. They're slow crafted to extract the naturally occurring antioxidants. They have that independent lab testing. There is less sugar, which also means, so like we said, that might be good for people who are insulin resistant or diabetic, but there's also less calories. Many of them, I don't think every single one, but many of them are vegan friendly. So, we're talking about the fish bladders before. And they are traditionally fermented. So they have antioxidants. This is interesting. They have antioxidants. I never thought about this with wine.
I never thought of wine as a fermented food, really, I guess. But
no, yeah, exactly. And I guess if you think about it, that's how they make, well, like even beer is like fermented, but I didn't really think about that. But
probiotics,
these wine, they have probiotics. And so they have these like living health benefits in the fermentation process, which is pretty cool. Like I mentioned, the low calorie, they are also considered low carb. They have less than 2 grams of carbohydrates. They are certified gluten-free, which is, important for me, for someone who is gluten-free. And also just because like, we know that they're not being, housed or stored in these like barrels that might have gluten in them. It says mass-produced wines use synthetic additives that sometimes contain gluten. So anyway, so I was pleasantly surprised. So I bought 4 bottles. I have only had 2. I was going to bring the rosé today, Laura.
I know.
But we're going to drink that another time. Yeah. Right. So I drank I had a Cabernet, and I think it was, a Malbec. And they were good. They were really good. I think I like the Cabernet a little bit better, but they were very good. And I did not feel any sort of headache or hangover. And I didn't have the flushing on my face that I sometimes get. Like I mentioned, I have rosacea, and I didn't have that either. So I was really pleasantly surprised by that. So, that's a company that you might want to look into. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us about that. But yeah, I just think, wine in general, it's like, it's a way for us to celebrate life. And who doesn't want to feel relaxed after a hard day of work or just to socialize with friends? I think that's one part of like drinking in general. A positive thing is that, you can, socialize with friends or family and kind of chill out and relax. And why not pick the best wine possible to do that, which is going to bring you some health benefits and isn't going to make you sick too.
Yeah, and it's fun. You got to have fun in life,
Mhm.
right? Definitely have to have
Yeah.
fun. But I do
Yeah.
have to kind of put in my 2 cents here as a health coach, kind of at the tail end of our promoting drinking podcast. Just kidding. But with my clients, we talk all the time about coffee and alcohol, and I am not anti-coffee. I am not anti-alcohol. I think everything in moderation is just fine. My only thing with coffee and wine are, even though they both have health benefits, right? There's benefits to drinking both of those, but the issue can come in like as the coffee all day and the wine all night. What's happening is it's like quieting all those signals that your body's trying to give you. And we talk so much on this podcast about the importance of listening to your body. And I think when it's masked with caffeine, during the day, and it's masked with a little wine buzz at night, you're missing out on some maybe symptoms of things. And
Mhm.
um, you know moderation is always good and fine and has health benefits, but I guess like Kim was saying with some of the recommendations, like sometimes we just need to kind of check ourselves and make sure that we're not going overboard really on either of those. But that's just like anything. But I think with these two in particular, it's really just the issue of not being able to hear what your body's telling you. And then I also
Mhm.
just have to take a minute here, and I have to prepare you all because we're going to go deep for a minute. Because, if you're feeling the need to drink wine all the time, especially when you're by yourself, that, oh, okay, my day is over and I have a moment of silence. And sometimes it's your only moment all day, right? And if that moment is always accompanied by a glass of wine, or two or three or a bottle, it might be, it might just be time to take like a hard look, at maybe making some potential changes in your life, because these moments of solitude are super important to help you kind of get in touch with yourself and your inner desires. And, they provide a lot of clarity. And this is challenging when your mind is fuzzy from alcohol. And, it's just this important inner work that, the beginning of the podcast, I was talking about, 43 and feeling fabulous on the inside, even though the outside is aging and not as fabulous as it used to be. That comes does not come easy. Like to feel that way inside does take some effort and it takes some work. And you really, I think a lot of it is um, just getting in touch with yourself. And it's something that we all need to do. And wine can make that a little bit more challenging. Um, and though, the other things that can make you feel fabulous, like clothes and a new hairdo and new skincare and all those things, which are important self-care, we talk about that, and they're fun, but they'll never make you feel as good as being able to appreciate your own company. And I just hate to see us all miss out on those really powerful moments because we're drinking wine all the time when we finally have the opportunity to do that. So just another little thing to think about. And then, even bigger than that, a lot of us are carrying around a lot of pain, pain from things in the past, pain from, just hurt from others, and carrying that all around, and a lot of pain that we're dealing with. And so if you're masking that with wine all the time, you're just kind of dragging out the healing process. The only way to get over pain is to sit with it. And the only way past it is to go through it. So, dealing with your issues head on can do a lot of good for your overall health and well-being. We talk so much here about whole wellness, and, this all kind of factors in too. Just kind of dealing with that stuff and going through it and coming out on the other side, and just going to be, a whole better person because of it. So those are my deep thoughts by Laurie Bittel for today on the on the wine drinking. But
Uh,
again, lots of health benefits. but also other things to keep in mind.
Yeah, and I think that's good. And probably we should have said it at the beginning too, that, of course, alcohol is addictive. And if you have had issues with addiction in the past, you can get benefits from foods and antioxidants from foods. You do not have to drink wine to have the benefits. And so, if this episode is a trigger for anyone, we certainly didn't intend for that to be. Of course, yourself, and if addiction is something that has plagued you in the past or plagues you now, please know that we are not advocating consuming alcohol. We're just presenting to you the health benefits of wine, but just know that following a real foods diet, like we talked about a few episodes ago, is the most important thing. All right, guys, thanks for sticking with us today. And I'm going to go take care of my family now. But for more from me, from Kim, you can go to kimmaravich.com. For more from Laurie, go to simplyempoweredllc.com. We're always open to listener questions or suggestions for the show. You can email those to contact@awholenewyou.podcast. We'd also love it if you joined our Facebook community and followed us on Instagram. Just search for A Whole New You Podcast. And if you would be so kind as to leave us a review in iTunes and subscribe to the podcast, we'd really appreciate it so that more people can find our show and join our community. See you next week.